people are going to tell you all the time you can't do anything. And the answer is fuck those people. Freedom means waking up every morning and doing what you want to do. Freedom means when your mom, your family members, your friends need help, you could help them out.
How important networking for you is?
If it's important to you, it's important. I'm not fooling myself to believe that it doesn't make a difference, because it does.
Was your goal initially was to get those expensive cars, expensive watches, like go to those nice, places, hotels, vacations? Or, you know what, I just want to have money so I can build myself more?
If you're loving what you're doing, the hustle just stays within you. There's not really a finish line. And wherever that finish line you may think it is, you'll keep moving the bar.
What's going on, friends? Thank you so much for tuning in for another great episode of Tom Talk Success, where we bring you a lot of different entrepreneurs, real estate people, business owners, and just people that want to level up. And so I'm super excited to announce a great speaker and a great friend of mine, Todd Nepola, who has done a lot of stuff, especially in his entrepreneurship, especially in real estate world. Todd, pleasure having you on, man.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate being here.
Todd, let's just go right into it. I want to ask you, what was some of your biggest challenges that lead you to build a great success that you have today?
You know, when I was growing up, I saw a lot of people with a lot of money around me, and I always associated having money with having freedom. Of course, I was young, and I wanted the Lamborghini and all the fun stuff too, but money always meant freedom. It meant no one could tell you what to do. So I was always motivated to earn a lot of money. This way I wouldn't have to be controlled by anybody. So the only challenge for me was to figure out how best to do that. So for me, the best way to do that was to go into sales. And no, I don't believe you're a born natural salesperson. I studied sales, and I had hard sales jobs, from selling things door to door to telemarketing to, you name it. But after college, I started becoming a stockbroker, which was popular back then in the late 90s. And it was a great career, allowed me to work hard, earn a lot of money in commissions. And from there, I took that money and started investing in real estate. And the rest, they say, is history.
Wow. What a great answer. So I want to ask you, right? So you started, you mentioned that, you wanted to know, you wanted to see the money, you kind of like, that was like, you wanted to have freedom, right? I want to ask you, is money for you, is it the biggest freedom, or is it money for you, it's a way to help others, create a freedom for yourself? Or it's more like you just want to kind of, like, what does really freedom means to you?
Freedom means waking up every morning and doing what you want to do. Freedom means when your mom, your family members, your friends need help, you could help them out. Freedom means you could help out the community if you see a school that needs something, or you could just take care of people and you could provide for people. It has nothing to do with buying a fancy car, a beautiful house on the water. It has everything to do with being able to give back and wake up every day and decide what you're going to do.
Interesting. So when you started as I'm assuming in the 20s, like you said, 2021, was your goal initially was to get those expensive cars, expensive watches, like go to those nice, places, hotels, vacations? Or was that like, you know what, I just want to have money so I can build myself more?
It's a little bit of both. I was very lucky that I always worked and I always sold things, whatever it was over the years. So I always had some money in my pocket. I was never like broke. But when I started earning real money, of course I wanted the nice things. I wanted, like you said, the Rolex, the car. But more so when I first started investing in real estate, I was looking for something that would pay me while I didn't work. And now the trendy word, they call it cash flow, but back then it was, money while you sleep. And that was really the goal, because when you're a salesperson, you live and die on a commission. And I'd say, well, this is great, but if I miss a week's work, I earn nothing. So it was both. I wanted all the nice toys. I bought a lot of nice toys. And I also wanted the freedom to not have to work for anybody.
Wow. So let's talk about the nice stuff, right? Mm-hmm. The cars, the watches, all those stuff. How do you think, is it really important for, for the young generation to have it, to kind of build credibility in a sense for them, or it's not important at all?
That's a really great question. If it's important to you, it's important. I'm not fooling myself to believe that it doesn't make a difference, because it does. I mean, you're a young guy. If I'm sitting in the design district having lunch one day and you pull up in a Lamborghini, I want to know who you are and what you're doing to have a Lamborghini. And I want to know if it's rented or yours, you inherited it. I want to know the story.
Correct.
Yet if you pull up in a regular car, it's not quite as exciting. So material objects do make a difference. However, you'll learn that, your age, your stage, it's very different. When you get to my age, I'm almost 52 years old now. So when you get to my age, it's way less important. Way less important. So I don't wear a watch anymore, and I probably have 30 of them at home. I like to wear nice suits, but I'm not trying to do that anymore. But I still know it makes a difference, because I have different cars. And today I pulled up in an Escalade and nobody could care. But if I pulled up in a fancy car, people would have wondered, who's that guy? It's just a fact of life.
So it does work.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, I don't believe in putting yourself in the hole and going into debt for it, but of course it makes a difference.
Because the reason I ask you this question is because I know a lot of people that will say that it doesn't. And I always have the conflict with them. But I think if you really go deep inside them, it kind of does, like you said.
It does. Now, you could fake it along the way. So I like to dress nice. I like to wear suits. So you don't have to buy the most expensive suits, but you got to dress nice. You don't have to have the fanciest car, but you got to take care of your car and keep it in good condition. So as long as your stuff is always prime and in nice condition, you'll look better, you'll act better, you'll feel better. But of course it makes a difference. I mean, we all know. I mean, to some degree. I mean, at some point it doesn't matter. But yeah, nice things do matter.
So I found out, you mentioned, coming with a suit, and I've kind of heard to a couple of your podcasts, like the importance of dressing and, looking good and feeling good. But how like important it is for, especially when you go to events, for people to really dress the part, right? To really, put a statement like, I dress nice, I look good, I feel good. I want us to talk to us about that.
So, I get a lot of pushback on this. I'm originally from New York, and if you go to New York today, still people wear suits.
Correct.
And when I tell people, especially the young generation, you have to wear suits, I sometimes get a snarky answer like, oh, yeah, well, the boss doesn't have to wear a suit. And they say, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't wear a suit, although he does wear suits now. And I say, well, when you're Mark Zuckerberg, you make that decision. But when you're trying to rise up and come up, you have to outdress, not just dress the part. You have to outdress people. And it makes you feel better. It's just a fact of life. If you walk in a room and you start feeling insecure, you're not dressed the part, you're going to feel bad. Yet if you're dressed nice, you're going to feel better. But people are going to judge you for that too, just like you asked about the material objects. You walk in wearing a nice suit, you look good, you look, like you're going out, like people think you dress well. You can certainly do this podcast in a polo shirt and a pair of shorts, and that's fine too, but it's a different image. And image is everything.
Correct. So that's pretty interesting because there is a lot of people in the audience who I feel like, to me, I feel dressing nice is like kind of like a leverage to yourself because you might not have, millions of dollars, you might not have like high revenue businesses, but if you dress the part, you can really make a statement and people will look at you differently just because you look in a certain way. So I want to talk to you when you started, going to events and stuff like that. What were some of your ways to be apart from others?
I'm always trying to be myself. And I tell people what's my truth. And I tell them, you should follow the things I do that you admire about me. Nobody's perfect. I try to do the best I can in a lot of areas. I'm not perfect in anything. But if you admire me for my real estate success, I'm grateful for that. That doesn't mean you should model me for maybe my relationships with wives or relationships with people. I mean, you got to pick and choose what you like. So like, for example, if I go to an event and I like a guy because of fitness and I want to model his fitness, that doesn't mean he's even a good person. It just means I want to clone his fitness routines.
Yep.
So I try to stand out in any way I can. But for the most part, I'm just trying to educate the next generation and teach them that it's really all available to you, but you have to give it time. The biggest difference I see is that my generation, 30 years ago when we were on the come up, we didn't have social media. We never thought we were going to get rich overnight, and we didn't hear these stories like you hear now of a kid who creates an app and is a billionaire by 21 years old. Your generation, the young, they start believing that it's instantaneous. And like I said, the kid in Design District with the Lamborghini, that's not usually his. It's either his dad's, a rental, or something else. That didn't exist in my day. It was just unheard of. So we had more patience. Your generation wants it overnight, and I'm always trying to teach them that to get wealthy and to be successful in anything, it takes a lot of time.
So that's a great point because I feel like I'm hearing a lot of people that have a lot of success, just like you are. They're talking about delay the success kind of. So like not essentially delay the success, but delay the good stuff that you want to get.
Absolutely.
Are you a believer in that?
1,000%. 1,000%. You have to.
So you're saying like if you start a business or you start your entrepreneurship career, like don't even focus on that. Like, well, that should be your goal, or that doesn't, like your goal should be to build a business and kind of scale it up, or your goal should be like, next year I want to have this Lambo, or in 2 years, like how do you see your stuff?
Having nice things are great, and everybody wants it right away. But the longer you keep taking the proceeds of your business and reinvesting that back into the business and into yourself for education and growth, the more it's going to compound and pay you in the future. So the question is, do you want to rent a Lamborghini or lease a Lamborghini when you're 25? Or do you want to own the Lamborghini dealership when you're 55? It's not going to be the same guy.
Got it.
And you'll meet a lot of people with a lot of money, and they'll tell you, I had to delay. I could have afforded to buy a Ferrari, but I didn't buy it. Instead, I put the money into another property. And I could have afforded the second and third house, but I didn't buy it. I went and bought more real estate or more businesses. And the longer you do that, and the more you could delay that gratification, the more it's going to pay you back when you're older.
Love it, love it, love it. So Todd, I want us to talk about, successful people in general. I found out that not all the people are like you. You're having a clear, no, for real, like you have a clear point that you want to help as much people. You say on almost every podcast, you just created the book, obviously. Shout out to your book, by the way. Check it out. By the way, all the proceeds you mentioned are going to charity, so it's not even for profit. But there is a lot of people, like I even know personally some people that will talk to me because they know me, but might not talk to other people. And I don't really like it, to be honest. So talk to us about this big difference of successful people that, just like yourself, want to talk, want to share the knowledge, doesn't want to keep it as a secret, to the other kind of side of people that, have done tremendous amount of success, but want them to kind of be private.
Well, I can respect anybody who truly wants to be private. And if you're private, stay out of the focus. Where I actually truthfully started my social media and I started doing more and more of this is because I'm very in love with real estate. I love what I do. I love my career. And I would start watching all this stuff, again, on social media, where people are teaching you real estate and you could buy their course and come for the first one for $100, then the weekend one's $5,000, and join their mastermind program for $50,000. But they don't do real estate. They teach. And they're making all this money and they're showing this great lifestyle with the fancy cars and the houses, but they're not in real estate. And to tell you the truth, they really pissed me off because I said, you're giving the wrong message. You're making people believe you have this because you're in real estate. You're not doing anything, but you're sending them off to the wolves.
Yep.
So my belief was, and I wanted to give back, and like I see, the truth is it goes back to my brother who's very philanthropic and he gives his time. I said, this is how I could give back. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I don't charge a dime. I talk to people all the time on the phone. I meet people on the streets. I do podcasts. I don't charge. Like you said, the book is for charity. I don't charge for anything. I want to teach real estate, but I want people to know this is what I do for a living is real estate. I'm helping you for free. People come to my office every day. So I want people to know the truth. That's why I do everything for free.
Do you see that by you giving out to the charity, back to the community, helping others, do you see the results are tremendously growing as well?
I think telling people the truth helps them. And I have real people, from not just kids who come from money, because I get a lot of that too, but I have firefighters, school teachers, everybody who wants to get into real estate. And I kind of give them a little bit of a path for them. Almost always starts with a lot of reading and studying, but you could give people that first step and that little nudge that it's going to be okay. And I think people, truthfully, when they go to a lot of these courses and they see the guy pull up in his, Bugatti and says, look, I'm worth $100 million, but I don't own any real estate anymore, they are a little skeptical. Yet if they see me and I tell them, look, sometimes you got to buy a $300,000 piece of property to get started, and you got to get a credit card, and you got to borrow money from mom and dad and your neighbor to get this deal done, and I show them the blueprint to how to do it, they're off to the races because it sounds a bit more realistic.
Interesting. So I want us to mention, people that, let's say they want to start, right? They're 20 years old, 25 years old, and, they trying to get kind of like where to start. That thing is like, they just finished college, but they have literally no clue. Like they went into a degree and they don't know what's next for them. What would you tell those people that feeling a little bit lost after graduation of college, for example?
It's a lot of people. And I meet a lot of college kids, and a lot of them went to college and got degrees and had a great time, and that's fantastic. You got to go with your heart, and you got to find a way to take your hobby and find out how to monetize it. So even like today, we're sitting in this podcast room, and this is my first time here, and like we said, we met the gentleman who owns the place. You could see he loves to create. He even has it tattooed on him. He found something he loves to do, so much that he put it on his arm, and he loves what he does, and he's going to monetize it. He may not make $1 billion off this, but you know what? He likes to come here. And that's way more important than the guy who became a lawyer because his parents said it's good to be a lawyer, and at 50 is having a double heart attack, and he hates his job. So find what you love and find a way to monetize it.
I agree. So there is a big saying of people saying, it's either do what you love or do what you have to do to be successful. What is your initial take on that?
Well, you're going to have to do both. Just because you love it, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff. So I love what I do, but that doesn't mean I love every day's work. It just means I enjoy the process and I enjoy what I'm doing. But of course, there's hurdles. I mean, in real estate in South Florida, a hurricane starts coming in and you're in the cone, you have some sleepless nights. There's roof leaks with rain. So I don't enjoy that aspect of it, but I enjoy what I'm doing.
So I want to take us to a different aspect of real estate. Recently, I think in the last 5 years, 5 to 7 years, I see that real estate is becoming more of gathering of people, more of think about a big community. You see the shows. I know you are part of a show. You see the LA shows, the Selling Sunset, all those different, Netflix shows. What do you take on that? Why is real estate becoming a thing where it's now it's interesting to people to be part of?
I think your generation's smarter than mine. And I think your generation, and mine nowadays, is figuring out that the days of going out and graduating college or high school and getting a career, whether it's working for Boeing or working for Tesla, whatever it is, the days of having a job for 30, 40 years and retiring and taking a pension are long since gone. And I think people figured out that owning a piece of property is not that complicated. It's very complicated to create an app, even if you know how to do it, but it's not that complicated to go buy a duplex and collect 2 rent checks each month.
Correct.
So I think they're figuring out that this is a way that if they buy these properties and they just do the right thing and collect the rents and pay off the mortgage, that they will be able to retire. And your generation, my generation, certainly seeing it, is that our parents don't have any money. Not my parents, don't call me out, my parents. A lot of people's parents don't have any money, so they're scared of that future. So this is the best way to interrupt that and go and find something that'll save you. And that's drawn a lot of attention to real estate.
Now, let's say you're starting out, but you don't get those support. You don't get, your parents are totally doing different stuff. They don't trust you. They don't trust what you do. And I feel like that could be with anything. It could be with real estate, business. Maybe, like you said, you want to build an app.
Yep.
And they will tell you, what? Are you crazy? You have to go work. What would you say to those people who have a deep feeling that they're about to get something big, but they have no support whatsoever?
There's a famous quote. I read it all the time on Instagram. And it's going to say, when I bought my first property, I was 25 years old. I put every penny I had on the line. I literally did go out and apply for credit cards because I didn't know if I had enough money to close, and I was going to take cash advances. Luckily, I didn't need to use it, but I did. I had $50 left in my account. I'm 25 years old. I went to the closing, and the lawyer who was doing the closing for me, he was probably my age now, probably about 50 years old. And when he asked me what I was doing and why I'm buying the property, and I told him, well, my plan is I'm going to buy it. I'm going to fix it up a little bit. I'm going to rent the vacant spaces. And then I'm going to refinance to get my money out. He literally laughed at me and he said, you think that's how real estate is done? He's like, you got a rude awakening coming your way, kid. And then I went to the property and I met some of the tenants. Like, why would you buy this property? But they were all wrong because I bought it in June of 1998. And by December of 1998, I refinanced it, got all my money back out, and was off to the races, was cash flow positive come January. So they were wrong, and people will be wrong, not necessarily because they're hating on you, because they don't see what you see. And the truth is, if you would have told me about a million things that people have started nowadays, I don't know that I would have believed it would have worked the same way either. I might not have told them no, I just would have kept to myself. But people are always going to doubt you, and they're going to think you're crazy until you're successful. Then you're a genius.
So I want to talk to you, because that's some great points that you're giving out. But I want to talk to you for a second, you being a father, right? Mm-hmm. How important it is to trust your kid, to let them really do whatever they want. Are you going to tell them as a father, you know what, try different stuff? Or you will say, you know what, go ahead. I'm trusting you with whatever you do.
Well, I have a very different parenting style. Like I said, I'm not maybe the ordinary guy. I let my kids do just about anything they want to do, but I tell them the price they're going to pay. There's certain things that I have non-negotiable for me. Like, I'm absolutely non-negotiable if I found that they use drugs or anything like that. But if they want to go to a club underage or they want to take a trip, you could go, but be careful of this. So I want them to go try as much as they can. They do love real estate because they've been in real estate since they were, babies. They've always come to properties with me. They've learned it. They've seen it. And of course, they're pretty smart and realize you could earn a lot of money in real estate. But they're not going to come work for me. They're both in college now, but they're not going to come work for me out of college because I won't let them. I want them to go find things. And if they love it after a couple of years and work for some companies, they're more than welcome to join me then.
Wow.
But everybody's got to go find their own thing.
So as a parent, would you tell to parents to get their kids to come to what they do? Because I feel like there is a lot of parents that it's like the most important for them to get their kids to do whatever they do. But they don't really give their kids an open shot. So you're saying for you, it's totally different story.
Yeah, well, the parents will probably hate me for this, but leave your kids alone. Your kids are doing great. Get off the damn Life 360. Stop stalking your kids. Your kids are going to be fine. Leave them alone. The parents are putting the stress on the kids where, you know, I know a kid who's in college and the parents gave him a choice. You could be a doctor or a lawyer. I'm like, that's it? Like, that's it. And it's like, I always did well in school and they're paying for me to go to college. So I could either be I'm like, two choices. And by the way, if you don't like either one, they're terrible choices. And I think they're great careers if you love it, but the kid doesn't even want to do it. And the kid doesn't know how to tell their parents that I don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. And the parents are pressing it, so they want to do it. You know what? This is the worst thing that could ever happen because this child, and it's still a child to me, it's a 19-year-old person, it's going to go through the motions, waste all this time and money, and they don't want the result. So parents have to back off and let kids be kids.
Interesting. I'm agreeing with that too, by the way. I feel like it's just going to help the kid and not going to harm him whatsoever. Right. Now, let's talk real quick about college. Are you a believer or are you think with today's information on YouTube, on Google, whatever, that it could be done in a different way?
So I get asked this all the time about college. I did not want to go to college. I found college to be kind of useless is the truth. It wasn't necessary for what I wanted to do. But all of my friends were leaving town, so I decided to tag along, and I went to a community college, and I kind of just stayed the course and transferred to the state school. Truthfully, it was a great experience. I learned how to pay rent, even though it was with my parents' money, and I learned how to pay an electric bill. I had a really great time, so I don't regret it. But if you're asking me if it changed my career, it probably held me back because I could have had a head start. But if you could afford to go to college and it's not a burden on your parents or on you and you have the time, do it. If you need it because you want to be the doctor and lawyer, of course do it. But if you don't really need it and it's going to set you back and you're going to go in debt for it, I think it's a foolish decision.
Why do you think so many, I will say, 17 to 21 people, years old, students feel like if they're not going to college, there'll be nothing in their life?
It's probably society. It puts a stamp on you, who you are, what you've achieved. And again, we could talk about people who've dropped out of college who've done very well or didn't go to college.
There's a lot of them.
There is a ton of them. Now, some of them dropped out of Harvard. I know we'll talk about Zuckerberg. You got dropped out of Harvard. You didn't drop out of community college. But it's really not what's necessary. Unfortunately, when you're very young and you're in your 20, 25, even your late 20s, it becomes a common question. Did you go to college? Nobody asks me that anymore other than when they want my opinion. Nobody cares. Once you're proven and once you're doing what you're doing, and if you want to be the greatest jet salesperson, once you're able to sell jets and you're producing and you're selling jets, nobody really cares anymore. But when you are getting started out, it does help a little bit, sure.
So it does help, you're saying. Interesting. Todd, question to you. So you're today a super successful individual. There is a lot of people that, will be, mentored by you, want to be like you. And let's say they see you out, they want to get to know you. They want to see, okay, Todd, how you were able to get this much success. But they're shy. They're shy. They're scared. They feel like they're nothing yet. So why did they talk to you? And they feel like it's happening so many times of people just wasting an opportunity. Like they might see you and they just wasted the opportunity to go talk to you, but just because deep down in themselves, they feel like they're basically nothing to talk to you. What would you say to those people?
Well, first off, I feel sorry for anyone who thinks they're nothing because everybody's somebody. Just because you might not have accomplished what I have, but if you're a young person, like you said, 17, 20, you got one thing over me that I can't even buy with all the money in the world, and that's time. And anyone would trade those years. I'd give back 30 years. I'd love to go back and have this run again. So everybody has something. But yeah, if you're shy, you're going to kind of have to get over that because, you got to go out and shoot your shot. I think, I was telling you earlier, I was in Manhattan this weekend, and a young guy from NYU just sent me a text and said, hey, I know it's a long shot. I know you're here having fun, but I would do anything to buy you a coffee or meet you just for 15 minutes. I'm like, you know what? I'm walking around the streets just shopping. If you want to walk and talk, do it. I'm in Soho. And he's like, I'm down the block. I go to NYU. Super nice kid. We had like a 45-minute conversation, walk and talk. He's like, this is very New York. I'm like, yeah, you know what? The weather was beautiful. We got to know each other. He asked the questions he wanted. And then I even told him, if you want to come down to Florida one day and spend a day at the office, he's like, I'm absolutely going to do that. Let's do that. You make the connection. But he took a shot. I mean, he only sent a DM. You just don't know. I happen to have read his DM. Maybe I didn't read some, but that one I happened to have read. Just caught my eye. I'm an NYU student. I'm a college kid. So if you're young and you reach out to people and you use that leverage and say, look, I'm 20 years old. I aspire to get into real estate like you, or whatever the person's career is. I'll do anything to come meet you. I could, whatever it is, give me 5 minutes, give me 10 minutes. Make it accessible for them. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised, want to help young people. They want to teach.
Very interesting. What would you say to people, I guess in your niche, right, that already made it? How important it is to stay humble and give back to the community?
Well, when you say you already made it, I don't feel that way. I feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, but I want so much more. I don't want more things. I want more of the same. I love growing my company. I love hiring more people. I love watching, we just expanded our office another 3,000 feet. I love that growth. So I don't know that you ever feel like you necessarily made it, because if that was the case, everyone would get to a point and just retire and stop. So if you're loving what you're doing, the hustle just stays within you. There's not really a finish line. And wherever that finish line you may think it is, you'll keep moving the bar.
So we're talking about, it's very interesting what you just said, because I want to kind of, put another minute to it. So the feeling of made it or not made it, what do you think is the inspiration for people to say, you know what, by 30 or in the next 10 years, in the next 5 years, people should be like, I want my next 5 years to look like this or that, or they should say, in the next 5 years, I want to get done this, that?
Well, a little bit of both. I'm a big believer that people truly overestimate what they could do in 1 year, but massively underestimate what they could do in 5 and 10 years. So I've met a lot of people that have nothing, no real estate, and they said, in 1 year from now, I want to own $5 million worth of real estate. I want to have a boat. I'm like, that's probably, it's not saying it's impossible, but that's probably not the way it's going to work. And then they say, and in 10 years, I want to have 10 million. I'm like, so you want to have 5 million in 12 months and then just double that over 9 years? So it's not as realistic. You got to set a goal. It's got to be tough to reach, but somewhat realistic. But you have to have a plan, whatever business you want to be in and whatever you want to do in life. You have to have a plan. And it's got to be, not necessarily that it's easy to get to, but it's got to be something that realistically can get done, certainly in real estate, because you're not going to find enough deals. I could buy a lot more properties, but I can't find the deals. So you got to be realistic to what you're going into.
So how important networking for you is?
Networking at every stage of the game is super important. And when you say networking, I always tell this to all the guys that I work with too, is that you're not necessarily looking to network to get anything. You're just looking to build relationships with people. Maybe there's nothing in it for you, or maybe you're going to refer this person to another person, but you don't know when it's going to come back to you. When the person you referred to another person knows someone who sends you something back. But if you're not out there from the top of the mountain yelling and screaming what you do for a living and why you're the best at it or why you have an edge at it, no one's going to know who you are, and it's kind of useless.
So you took your social media, you mentioned a year ago or something like that, you started it, to fundamental levels, like very, very good. What was some of the stuff that helped you to kind of gain the traction on your pages?
So I was lucky. I got paired up with these guys who got me started in social media because I did a podcast with them and they said, you guys should go out and do it. And I always give credit to them. It's the guys at the School of Hard Knocks, these brothers and Josh, and these 3 guys are great. And they told me you should do it. And they said, you would really be giving back and teaching. And I said, I'm willing to do it. And I said, I'll try it for 4 or 5 months. And it was August. I said, let's just do it till the end of the year. Let's run with it. Let's have some fun. And it took off right away. And I had some videos that got millions and millions of views on social media, and the following went up. But more important than the following going up with the views, it was the comments and the feedback. How much people like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. Yes, thank you. And then they would DM you and ask you a question. And I've been sending out hundreds of copies of my book for free to people just because they're asking good questions. I was like, I like that question. Let me send you a book. And I've met so many great people from it, so that when the year was over, at the end of that year, last year, end of 2023, they said, you want to keep going? I mean, they knew the answer. I'm like, yeah, let's keep going. And it keeps gaining more and more and more momentum. And the social media's allowed me to help more people than I ever could have reached any other way.
Great answer. So you took your social media and really expanded it. Do you feel like it's opened doors for you business-wise as well?
1,000,000%. I think, and if you would have asked me this 18 months ago or maybe even 12 months ago, I would have said, I don't know about the social media. I don't know how relevant it is. But now that I'm living in that world, it is so valuable. It's ultimately like your business card. So if your social media is going to have pictures of you every weekend out on a party or in a boat and blah, 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 when you meet people, they're going to look. They're going to want to see what you do. And it's going to be out there. But if you're the best realtor, and I can name, I always kind of name the same realtors down here in South Florida, but you look at the Chad Carrolls or who are these people, their social media is bulletproof, all about their real estate. I'm happy to know maybe he goes out on the boat with his family, but I'm following him for real estate. And I want to see access to these $40, $50 million apartments he's going to sell. So you're watching that, and that becomes who you are. So when you go to get clients, they could see who you are and what you've done over a duration of time. So they get to know your personality.
How do you deal? I don't know if you had that when you started, but I know personally a lot of people, young people, older people that afraid from social media. Sure. Means like, they're shy. There is no way they're going to take their phone and, screenshot, do like a quick video. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with being shy on social media?
I might twist what you said just a bit because I get this from a lot of
Sure.
people. And I don't know if it's that people are shy to do the video or they're scared. And it's a little bit different because anyone can make a video, especially behind closed doors. It's letting it go out because especially these younger kids, like, oh, my friends are going to make fun of me. People are going to say, oh, what do you think you are? And I got that too. I had a lot of friends when I first started doing, what do you think, you're a life coach now? I'm like, no, I'm not really talking about life at all. I'm talking about real estate. Oh, what do you want to be famous? You want to be this? And they all want to kind of shit on it a little bit until they see the traction. Like, well, how do you get so many followers? What do you get? Yeah, you have to be authentic and genuine. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it won't work. But it's the same thing as like business. If you tell me and one of your friends right now, you're going to go out and start a tech company, well, why are you going to start? What's your capability in doing that? Because he doesn't necessarily want to see you get greater than him. He likes you at the same level, and that's not necessarily wrong. That's human. So when your friends see you going out and doing it, that's what happens. And we got a guy down here in South Florida, probably your viewers all know Grant Cardone. And I first met Grant Cardone one day in front of a movie theater. I was there picking up my daughters, and he was walking out with his daughters. And we had like a 20-minute conversation. I said, oh, I follow you on social media. I think he had 300,000 or 400,000 followers at the time. Now the guy's got millions. And, you could say what you want about Grant. I'm not here to defend him or protect him or in any way, but he's got thick skin. But he went out and did that, and he became the #1 fundraiser on social media, and he's bought over $5 billion worth of real estate, all thanks to social media. And he owns it.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Grant because 4 years when I'm starting my career, Grant was actually one of my biggest mentors. Mm-hmm. And through social media, that's exactly how I found him.
That's right.
And that's why I feel social media has so much power because without the social media, nobody in this world would know who Grant Cardone is or who Todd. So what would you say to the people that are still know that it's important but doesn't take the steps to start it?
Well, the beauty with social media is it's free. And if you're afraid to do that, aren't you then going to be afraid to risk your life savings to buy a property or buy a medical facility or buy a nail salon, whatever business you want to be in? So you got to start getting over these hurdles, and you got to put yourself out there. And nobody wants to fail. And generally when you have mistakes, it's not a complete colossal failure. You got to weave and bob a little bit. But if you're not putting yourself out there, again, I'm not saying you're nothing and no one, but you're not going to get to that level. You're just not going to get to that level of greatness unless you shoot shots.
Very interesting. Todd, can you talk to us about what was some of your biggest challenges in your life?
Yeah, biggest challenges, I would say it's challenge/motivator is that when I was very young in school, as young as elementary school and middle school, I still remember these days, teachers would always count me out. And I guess today they'd probably diagnose me with ADD or ADHD. I love to talk. I always wanted to be active. I don't think I have any of those things. I think I just get bored easily. But the teachers would tell you, and I remember teachers saying brutal things like, you're going to be a loser, you're going to wind up doing nothing, they were tough on you. And they never really supported you. And back then, what they would do if you like to talk too much or act up in class, not that I did anything so bad, mostly it was talking and chewing gum, but they would push you to a corner and nobody would pay attention. So for me, I use that as yeah, you think so? Watch what I'm going to do. But unfortunately, it hurts a lot of people, and you push them to the corner, they stay in the corner. So you have to get over those obstacles, just like you said, like people that want to overcome going on social media. Social media is free. So if you want to be a fitness instructor, the best path for you to start getting your stuff out there is to go on there and start giving away videos for free on social media with workouts. And people who resonate with your style are going to start following you. But if you're scared to do that and you don't want to overcome that challenge and put yourself out there, you're not going to have the same success. So, yeah.
Interesting. I want to get back to you, Todd, for a sec about colleges, because I feel like there are so many people in the audience that kind of resonate to that. And I feel like colleges, like I want to talk to you about it because to me it's just insanity what's happening there. So for example, you can take a course on real estate, but you ask the professor, hey professor, how many deals have you done in your life? And you probably know it, that the answer could be maybe a 0 or 1, or maybe he only bought his house and that's all of the real estate that he's done in his life. Right. How can a guy like that can teach students about being great in real estate? Like, to me, it's totally insanity. I want to know your thoughts on it.
They teach the fundamentals, and they teach what the book tells them to teach. Unfortunately, the book doesn't give you the real reality. The book doesn't tell you that to be a developer, that from the time you buy a property to the time you're going to cash out could be 7 years. It doesn't tell you about the hurdles of getting entitlements. Doesn't talk about the the permits you got to get and the building process and the neighborhoods you got to fight with to get variances. So the books don't really teach you the real obstacle. Just like we could make it easy. I love to work out. I could read a book about working out, but when I go get underneath the bench press and I put 225 there, it feels a whole lot different than the book just told me. So they're teaching you the starting point, but that's not really the real deal. But one of the greatest things I see a lot of colleges doing now, we down here in Miami have FIU, there's programs like a friend of mine, Dave Grutman, goes and teaches a program. So Dave runs the nightclubs Live, and he's got all the restaurants. He's got everything.
I saw it. I actually like it, yeah.
So what does Dave do? Dave's way of giving back, because he's super busy, is he teaches a course for a limited time every year at FIU in hospitality, which FIU is one of the best schools for that. And he brings in all these major people. I think he brings in the Jenners and Bad Bunny, and he brings in Jeff Sofers, and he brings in icons. But he's teaching you, so this is what you learned. Now let me tell you what it's like to really run a nightclub, because it means you're never going to sleep. It means you sleep during the day and you got to be up all night. It means you can't drink because everyone else is drinking. And he starts telling you the truth. And those courses are also available in school. So you got to pick and choose what you take.
Great answer. I want to talk to you about why real estate is becoming the things that, like, now I feel like everybody wants to be involved with it. Like, what's happening in real estate that it's like starting to be parties, networking events, restaurants, very like, it's like kind of like a movie. I don't know. I
think everything is becoming a movie because of reality TV and social media, and the world is getting, although it's bigger than ever, it's smaller than ever. And, I can know what someone in Moscow is doing right now by going on social media. I mean, in New York City, they have mirrors seeing across the country, and you can watch people everywhere. But real estate has always been very popular. I mean, you can go back a couple hundred years ago. Everybody always wanted to own land and own real estate. It's just getting sexier, and it's becoming more recognizable. So if we go back 30 years ago, 99.9% of the world was never going to see the inside of a mansion. Now, you can watch $1 Million Listing LA, and you could see inside $150 million mansions, and the illusion becomes reality because you just walked it. You were there. You know what the kitchens look like. So now you want it more because you just saw it. It's not just hidden behind the wall.
That's actually right. That real estate, in a way that, like you said, is first it's an illusion, then it becomes reality. So it's pretty interesting. I want to talk to you about, Todd, how important it is in your life to have a good marriage with your wife.
A good marriage, a good partner, whatever you want to refer to it as, a good partner is everything. If that partner doesn't support you and you don't support them in return, you're going to have a lot of conflict. And that person that you're spending your life with is the person you're with most of the time. That's your person. That's who you're with. So a good partner could take you everywhere, and a bad partner, no matter how hard you try and fight it, could take you to hell.
What would you say to some of the guys out there that building a business and starting to invest, whatever the situation could be, but they have no success, and then the wife starting to be like, whoa, they might go on social media, see all the other stuff. Like, let's talk for a quick about reality, because that stuff happens. And maybe in some way or form, the wives will say, you know what, I don't feel like I'm kind of, confident about your situation, and they will leave him. And what do you know, the guy in a couple of years turned to be a multimillionaire or whatnot. What do you think about those situations?
I think that person just did you the biggest favor of your life. It's going to hurt because breakups are tough, but they did you the biggest favor. If that's who that person is, get them the hell out of your life. The sooner the better. I agree entirely. Not just your generation and my generation, all generations. My mom, for God's sakes, is on social media. We see things and you think everybody has it because that's what's in front of you. And the beautiful algorithms that are there to get you going are going to deliver to you exactly what you want to see over and over. But that's not necessarily the reality. I'm very lucky to know a lot of people, even much older than me. I'm talking people in the 70s and 80s, and they've been married for many, many, many years. And these people that I'm referring to are very successful. And a few of them have their picture in Forbes. And they're with the same woman. And they've been there. And that woman's been with them through the thick and thin. And not every year is great. I mean, that's what you want your partner to do. And if your partner's going to jump ship because you're having a bad year when you're trying to hustle for them, that's not a partner. That wasn't really love. That's just the truth.
Don't you feel that we talked about the women in the 80s today's. Don't you feel there is such a big difference in those women to compare to ladies in their 20s, 30s in today's days? I feel there is such a big gap.
You know, I think women have a lot more power now, and I'm very happy for that, being a girl dad. I don't want to see women just be their goal to grow up to be a housewife. And if that's what you want, God bless you and be a housewife. But women have a lot more availability to them. They can go out and have careers. I still do, unfortunately, think it's a little tougher for them in this world, but they have that available. There's wonderful people like, Sheryl Sandberg, who teaches these women that you could be the COO of Facebook as a woman who came from humble beginnings. So they're going after things more. That definitely gets to men because most men still want to be, I'm the man, I'm the provider, and you're going to take care of us. And women have rights. And what happened is, a lot of women stayed in these marriages, and the man got to 50 years old and said, now I'd like to trade you in for a 25-year-old. And the woman had nowhere to go. She had no career. She had nothing. She might have gotten some money in the divorce, but she was kind of lost. So I'm very proud of women for going out and finding their own way, but I also understand how men are saying, well, women have changed. Women have gotten more powerful, and that's going to be the trend going forward, too.
So you have two daughters right now in college, right? As a father to them, would you tell them to focus on their career 100%, or would you want them to also, I'm trying to figure it out, like as a father to a girls, would you want to have them to kind of just focus on their career, or you want them to also focus on relationships right now, especially in the college ages?
So you have time for everything. You could be the most successful businessman in anything and be a great husband. So you can do that, and vice versa. I know a lot of very, very successful women. I have some friends who, the women are the breadwinners, and the men are more the stay-at-home kind of person, and they have good marriages. So you could do all that. I won't push my kids to do anything. Whatever they want to do that their heart's desire is what's best for them. With that being said, my kids know they must find a way to be dependent upon themselves. Because even if you have a great marriage, the man could get run over by a bus, and you're on your own. So I don't necessarily believe it's a strong point to be dependent on anyone.
Todd, as a father, do you believe giving out to your kids, like let's say they want a new car, a new watch, a new bag, whatever, do you believe the best thing is to give them, or do you tell them, no, I'm actually not buying you anything, you will work for it?
Okay, so I said this earlier. You should follow people where you respect their decisions. In that case, I am a terrible father because I spoil my daughters. I know it's entirely wrong. I actually come from the camp that it's harder to say no to people when you can do it. If you just don't have it, you can't give it to them. But because I can, I definitely spoil them. I hope and pray they don't become entitleitis, but in that case, I'm a really bad example because nobody's perfect. I'm not the best dad in that world, and I give them everything.
Because you know what? I'm asking you as a young man because eventually I want to get into your position when I can provide everything, but I'm still trying to figure it out, like, would I want to give them everything? Would I not? Like, it's kind of interesting topic because you see really you see really two kinds of people. You see two kinds of, like boys, girls, whatever, that have successful parents. And some of them are really, taking that success and want to build on top of it. But some of them taking the success and just want to spend it all and doesn't want to do anything. Right. So how as a father could you still maintain the education in your kids to want to grow and want to scale and want to be successful and not just enjoy what you have?
Well, they won't get to enjoy just what I have forever if they're not doing something. So my kids know the rules. If they don't want to do anything and they say they want to drop out of college, that's fine. I support that too. Don't go, but then go get a job and support yourself. I may help you a little bit, but so long as they're doing the right things, you're going to carry it along the way. it's very tough to be financially successful and not want to give your kids, because that's all you got. I mean, like, you want to take care of your kids. You want to give them nice things. So I'm certainly spoiling them, but I am trying to keep them grounded and understand that they're very fortunate, they're very lucky. And so long as they stay out of trouble and keep doing the right things, I'll keep doing that. But they are going to have to work. They're not going to graduate from college and say, well, now I'm going to go spend 2 years in Europe. That's fine as long as they're working in Europe, but they're not going to just do nothing. And as long as they're doing something, I'm going to bridge the gap. Otherwise, what's the point of having all this money?
I agree. So you're saying eventually you're kind of just trying to keep it balanced in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's kind of pivot to a different point. In your beginning, what was some of your biggest challenges in your first couple of years as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. We didn't have the tools available to us that your generation has now. We didn't even have the internet, for God's sakes, back then in the 1990s. So, well, at least not the way it was dial-up then. It wasn't internet. So we didn't have mentors and teachers. So for me to learn, I used to go like to seminars where like a whole day with 10 speakers in like the Miami Arena and places like that. That's all you could learn, but you couldn't learn anymore. So for me, I had to read a lot. And that's when I started reading a lot of books. And I tell everybody, you have to read a lot of books. Now, if you want to read novels, that's great, but that's not really making you smarter per se. So I read tons of books on history and biographies and business and selling and relationships to get smarter. Now, you really don't have to read all those books because you could just go to whatever site. So if you right now say, you know what, I want to get a better workout, there's 9 million people teaching you workouts, and it's actually visual. You could see them doing it. If you want to learn about real estate, there's 9 million people on social media teaching you. So we didn't have that. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges. It was a lot of trial and error figuring it out on our own.
So when you started your career, I want to know, did you, like, let's say you made some X amount of money every single month. Would you take that money and invest back into yourself, or you will invest back to your business?
When I was a stockbroker, I would save the money because I knew I wanted another business. However, I lived very well, but living well as a single guy, I was 22, 23 years old, is very inexpensive. And even though Miami people say it's expensive, now it was always kind of an expensive, flashy city, but it was still cheap. I didn't have kids, I didn't have a wife, I didn't have anything, so I was able to save a lot of money. It's very important to reinvest the money in yourself. I mean, so you really have to keep doing that in the beginning, and that doesn't necessarily mean going out and buying a business. That means taking a course that is, specific for what you want to learn, and keep reinvesting that.
How important it is, you think, for people to know how to communicate, just to communicate with other people? Can you talk more about how did you find communication in your career important for you and know how to talk to other people?
Well, obviously, communication is everything, and that's goes back to what I said earlier. If you aren't going to talk to anyone and tell people what you do, you could be the greatest at whatever you do, but no one's going to know, which is why, again, go back to reading, and I say everybody in the world should read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And what you should recognize about a book like that is the book was probably written, 80 years ago. But if you read this short little book, which is one of the greatest ones ever, it's definitely a top 10 book ever written, and I'm sure you can Google it, it will be. You read this book, it teaches you tricks on how to get people to talk to you, not to trick them, but how to make it easy for you to break the ice. And what worked 100 years ago still works today exactly the same, but you have to come out of your shell and speak.
So it's interesting because, growing up, I thought to myself that the best way to get people just like you, just like how we met, is events.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer. I'm always talking to my audience, to my community about, go to events, meet people. And I found that some of the people will go for it, but some people think it's a scam, think they'll only look at the way of why would you buy $1,000 tickets for one-day event? But I tell them, look, it's not about what you pay, it's about what can you get from what you paid. So talk to the people that always think that all of the stuff, it's a scam, it's not real. I'm sure you've heard it a lot of times.
You're going to have so many people doubt you in life. And you're going to have so many people tell you why you shouldn't do things. You got to go with your gut. And I'll even bring that back to my real estate. When I first started buying real estate and I was working at the brokerage and I told people I was taking all my money to buy a piece of property, they literally made fun of me. Now that's called bullying, but they were making fun of me. Why would you do that? You could put that money, you could leverage it, and you could buy stocks and make a fortune. And they would make fun of me. And some of these people now who are much more successful as stockbrokers than me, fast forward almost 30 years, they call me and want to get a job now. So People are going to tell you all the things you shouldn't do, but you got to do them. You're entirely right. Why do you go to networking events? I still go to all my conventions for real estate and do things like that because that's where you're going to meet the people you need to meet. And if I walk through the Aventura Mall, I may run into someone, but they're not in the zone. They may be there with their wife and kids, and they're not in the zone to talk. Like how you and I met at an event. It was wide open space. You and I were there. We were in the same frame of mind. We talked and we met. That's how you're going to meet people.
And so a lot of time people underestimate what they can get from those events.
You can learn so much from those events. It's one of the greatest things you could do, and I still go to them today. I was going to them all the time when I was your age. I still go to them now, whether it's a networking event, seeing a speaker, like we talked about Grant. You don't have to like Grant Cardone. I'm sorry, Grant, don't take that the wrong way. You don't have to like him, but
you have to understand.
I like Grant Cardone. I'll go on the right. I like Grant, but he has a program here in South Florida in Hollywood where he comes and he brings out like 10 or 15 speakers. Where do you think you're going to get an opportunity? I mean, for God's sakes, he has past presidents. He has, football players. Yeah. I mean, where do you think you're going to get a chance to watch these people talk for 30, 45 minutes and give you 30, 40 years of experience in 30, 40 minutes? Like, what better thing are you doing that day? I just don't know.
Very interesting. So we talked about the challenges. I want to hear some of your biggest success as of today. Looking back at your life, what's some of the points where you're like, that's a great success right there?
Well, the biggest success I have in my life is my daughters. I don't rush anybody into being a parent. I waited till I was 30 years old to become a dad, and I think that, you got to find the right time. I have friends who did it younger, friends who did it later. For me, that's when I wanted to be a dad. I was blessed and lucky that we had kids. That becomes your legacy. That becomes everything, and I'm super proud of my kids. They're doing fantastic. I'm not the parent saying my kid is, curing diseases and is winning the spelling bees. My kids are normal kids, and that's all I want them to be. I'm not trying to make them anything else, but I'm very proud of them because they're good kids, and they stay out of trouble. Like I said, they're loving, they're great. So that's my greatest accomplishment. What you're probably asking more so is related to business, and the greatest feeling I get in business is when you teach people how to do what you do, and they do it for you, and you're watching people come up. So for example, we do a lot of management, obviously, of our commercial properties. When I could take a manager with very, very little experience and train them and have them so good that they are now experts and they know how to go out and buy their own properties because they've been doing it so long, that's the greatest give back, is when you teach your tools to somebody else. They're not your competition. There's plenty for everybody, but when you give somebody that gift, that's one of the greatest things you could have.
What were some of the things you would say helped you the most to build confidence in yourself?
I was probably always confident, and confidence comes from experience and success, and you have to have some wins. And I feel bad, as I said, for some people who have setbacks in the beginning because that does rattle your cage a little bit, but you got to have some wins. You just have to, and you'll find some of the most successful people in the world had one big win, and they ride that big win for life. I mean, we were talking before about Adam Newman. He created WeWork, and we could forget the outcome. We could forget anything, but what he created was absolute insanity of a company. I mean,
I agree.
How he started that and created that vision, and he was so passionate about it, and whether it worked or not, I don't actually care. He is always going to go down as a titan, as someone phenomenal for creating that world. And that's what you really want to get to, is a few wins. And they could be small wins, but once you start having wins, you'll start building some confidence.
So I was talking to my brother the other day I told you about, and I told him, my little brother, I told him how important it is for him when he's starting the career out and he wants to find his clients to be confident in himself and confident when he's talking to even a lot more successful people than he is today. What would you tell to the people that are in his shoes, or people that could be even 30 but have not really accomplished something, to still have that confidence in themselves?
As I said, confidence will come from within. So as we mentioned earlier, dress nice, be well-groomed, take care of yourself. But when you meet people, and certainly if you're intimidated by them, just be yourself. That expression, fake it till you make it's gotten way overplayed. Don't fake who you are, because they're not going to know who you are. So if you're a 17-year-old kid, and I say that with respect because I would like to be a 17-year-old kid, but if you're a 17-year-old kid, own that you're a 17-year-old kid. So if you're going to meet me and I'm a 51-year-old guy, you're not trying to compete with me. You want advice from me, and you should want that advice, because if you respect something I've done, you want to know the shortcut. You want to know what I did or didn't do in the 30-some-odd years that I'm older than you, so you could go do that. So own that and tell people, I'm 17 years old, I'm in high school, I'm a freshman in college, whatever it is, and I want to be a fitness model like you one day. So how the hell do you stay in such great shape? And ask these people and let them talk. And if you're yourself, everybody does want to help you.
How do you deal with rejections from other people?
Oh, I don't believe in rejection. Rejection just means that I haven't convinced you to say yes. And I'll convince you to say yes. So if I really want to meet a person and get to a person, I'll find a way to get there, and I won't give up. You know, if you think you're going to pick up the phone and make a call and you're going to get, John Gray, the CEO of Blackstone, on the phone, it ain't going to work like that. It may take you 100 tries and 100 different times standing in the street waiting for him to walk out for lunch. But if you really want something, go get it.
That's super interesting. So you're saying you look at rejection, whether it's on the phone, whether it's, for example, let's say I invited you and you rejected the podcast. You're saying it as you don't take it personally. You just say, I'll try again.
Yes.
Wow. Because I can tell you about myself. When I started, I'll take rejection as like, oh, there's something you don't like about me. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience that kind of feel that way. What kind of made it for you to never felt this way of like you never took it personally?
Just look at yourself and picture yourself when some people ask you things. Sometimes the timing is right and sometimes it's wrong. So the answer you just gave that, oh, maybe there's something they don't like about me, maybe you called them and they just had a fight with their wife. And you said, would you do my podcast? And he doesn't want to do anything because he's aggravated. But maybe if you called him an hour later, he was in a good mood. So it's not you, it's on them. If you're trying to get them to buy something, that's a little bit different. But if you're trying to get to meet someone or have access to someone, you have to find ways to make it work for them. But rejection, ultimately, in any area, just means that you have to convince them a different way. It's never you that they don't want. It's convincing them to come do something. And it's nothing you should take personal.
I love this answer. It's I'm sure it will give a lot of value to the audience because I've been in those situations before, and I'm sure a lot of people can kind of relate. Todd, lastly, we are in the Tom Talk success business, right? Where we just, want to talk about success. And for me, I feel like I always tell to my parents that to me, success is I want to just keep on leveling up, keep myself, busy, working, seeing what else I can do. How can I get myself better? What does success means to you?
Well, I like that you say leveling it up. When I met it, Alvaro Nunez.
Yeah.
He wrote the book Level Up, and
Correct,
it's fantastic.
yeah.
You have to keep leveling up. Like you said, if you got to 3, you got to get to 4, 5, and 6. And when you get to 6, don't rest on your laurels. You got to get to 7, 8, 9. But success ultimately means constant and never-ending improvement, constant growth. You have to keep going. And the truth is, one of the biggest fears I see in people is when they get to a certain age and they retire, they start to die. They really start to lose their focus and their mojo, which is why a lot of older people go back to work and volunteer. So success is the constant improvement of your life. Nobody's perfect. And believe me, all the people you guys see on TV with these perfect lives, nobody has it perfect, because then you're going to see them on TMZ a week later where there's a scandal. So everybody's fighting a fight. Everybody has battles. Everybody gets sick. Everybody has issues. But success ultimately means just keep going and growing. And one of the main things I always tell people about being successful is the more fortunate you get in life, whether that's money, health, whatever it is, the more you're obligated to give back. And if you're fortunate enough to get to a stage in life where you have a very successful business and you're doing great, you are obligated to teach that business and give back with nothing in return. So you're running this podcast right now, and I know you're doing great, but you got to get to a point where you got to take a bunch of 8th, 9th, 10th graders who dream about having this one day and let them come here and watch you do a podcast so they know one day they could be like you. And we have to give back at every age. It's not when I get to 65 and I have $1 billion, I give back. No, bullshit. You have a great podcast. Why are you not teaching some kids in AV in high school how to come watch this? We could all give back. And that becomes the key to success.
That's super interesting what you just said, because I feel like when you're giving up, you're creating more success, not only for other people, but eventually, like you said, I've never actually thought about it, but it's a great idea to bring some people that like podcasts, want to have the experience here to just at least watch it.
That's right.
And then, who knows, maybe they'll get an idea that I was not thinking about, and they'll say, Tom, you know what, you should do this, or that. And then now I'm inspired by them.
I will tell you the greatest thing I got out of my social media is the fact that I've met so many people that are teenagers, 20s, all ages, that are coming to me and saying, I want to do what you do. And if you want to put a battery in someone's pack, that's it. Because I wake up at 51 saying, there's kids who dream about doing what I'm doing, and I get to do it. And they want to do what I'm waking up in the morning to, and they have to, all these fears and all these obstacles, and I'm in it. I'm already rolling. So it really recharges you. So it's exactly right. If you got to see how many people wish they had the guts to start a podcast, it's going to motivate the hell out of you. So yes, in teaching, you will learn.
Todd, what a pleasure of having you here.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. I felt like we have learned from you and about you so much. And I just love the fact that you want to help people. I think that's the new way to go, giving back, helping the community. You have the book right now. How can people find you?
Well, you can find me on social media at Life According to Todd Nepola. You can certainly get the book. All proceeds do go to charity. It's Keeping It Real on Commercial Real Estate. And you can find me around. I'm always in South Florida. I just want to point out one last thing for all the viewers. I met Tom at an event. He shook my hand. We said hello. We talked for 30 seconds. We kept in touch a few times on text. And then he asked me if I'd do his podcast, and that is why I'm here. Shoot your shot. You never know when you're going to get a yes, and that's how you get all your guests. So I'm very proud of you for shooting the shot and
Thank
asking.
you so much.
And I'm very flattered to be here today. It's been a great podcast.
I appreciate that. And thank you guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys took a lot from value from it. And if you guys make sure to subscribe to check out all the YouTube videos, and I'll see you in the next one.